Let me take you on a foraging trip in the Black Hills to pick chokecherries, and then we'll come back to my kitchen and I'll show you how I make chokecherry jelly and chokecherry syrup. We picked 9 pounds of chokecherries this morning. Now it's time to wash them off. I'll skim all the leaves and stems off and get those thrown out. And you can see that there's a mix of dark red and light red chokecherries in here, and that's good. The dark red ones are definitely way ripe. The light red ones are ripe enough, but they, since they're a little bit underripe, will provide some natural pectin for the jelly and syrup to thicken. Some years it takes lots of searching to find enough, but this year was a good year for chokecherries. Having some debris in here, and the stems especially, is really not that big of a deal because we're going to be straining the steeped mixture anyway and then recooking the juice, boiling the juice that we get off of all the berries. But we do need to wash them because a lot of times you'll find chokecherries on fence lines along rural mountain roads because the birds disperse them, and while they're sitting on the fence they end up depositing a seed that they've digested, so a lot of times they're dusty having been next to a road. There we go, 9 pounds of chokecherries foraged from the wilderness. We need to crack them briefly in the food processor, and what that does is cracks the pit a little bit and brings out a natural almond flavor in the cherries and makes the flavor of the jellies and jams more complex. It's very nice. So we'll just crack them briefly and throw them in the big pot. You don't want to completely pulverize them. But you could hear the pits getting cracked. I'm going to top this off with water and get it on the stove to simmer for a little bit, and then I'm going to put the cover on and let them steep overnight. I wanted to mention too, I have an old ice cream pail that a long time ago I marked with a Sharpie at different levels so you can see approximately how many cups as you're picking, and we take these out into the woods with us to pick. The first level I have for 1 quart or 4 cups, and I wrote myself a note that yields 2 pints of jelly. 2 quarts or 8 cups of berries yields 4 pints of jelly, and 3.5 quarts or 14 cups is 7 pints. And in my notes from my recipe that I've had for a long time from my grandmother, it says 6 pounds of berries gives you 6 cups of juice, and for every 3 cups of juice you add 6.5 cups of sugar, and a 6-ounce package of liquid pectin. And every 3 cups of juice gives you about 6.5 cups of jelly. So since I have 9 pounds of chokecherries, that's going to give me 9 cups of juice, which is 3 batches. So I knew that I needed 3 liquid pectin pouches. I needed 3 batches of 6.5 cups of sugar each, and I needed 6 1-cup or pint jars times 3. So I need 18 pint jars. It's noisy because I have steaks in the air fryer, but I wanted to show you that the chokecherry mash is simmering. So this is where I turn it off. I'm going to put a lid over it and let this sit overnight to steep. But you can see how beautiful the juice is. It's just brilliant red and it smells so good. Everything happens really fast when you're making jelly, so I wanted to make sure that I've got it all ready to go. It's going to happen first thing in the morning. It's the next morning. The first thing I need to do is strain the chokecherry mash without any cheesecloth one time, and then I'll strain it again with cheesecloth. What I'm trying to do is get every single berry in here smashed and broken so that the juice can come out of every berry, because every chokecherry that we harvested yesterday is one that the birds, chipmunks, the squirrels up in the wild did not get to have. So I don't want to waste any of this. Wear black because you're going to get splattered with staining juice. And then I am going to use my chinois. I'm spooning what I've just smashed into the chinois. No jelly bag yet. This is just the initial smash. I'm not going to worry about solids getting in because we're going to filter those through cheesecloth a second time. I'm doing this batch by batch, and then what you do with the chinois is rotate this smasher around the cone, holding it tight against the sides. And that gets even more juice out of it. And then I'll dump this, I'll let this sit and drain while I process the next batch in the strainer. And then when I'm ready to put more in here, I'll dump this out into my chokecherry waste bowl. So I'm about maybe halfway through my 9 pounds, and I've been at it for a half an hour. So I have another half an hour of processing to go here. So I've got my juice all extracted and strain it through several layers of cheesecloth to get those solids out. And I might actually do it more than once. We'll see how it turns out. Pour this in. Such beautiful juice. Okay, I'm getting towards the end where we have those very, very fine solids, so I'm going to pour as little of that in as possible and just try to skim off the good juice. I'm not going to squeeze this. I don't want to squeeze those solids through. I'm just going to let them drain. These are the solids that are left that I didn't even pour out of the bowl. So I'm going to rinse these two things out, and I'm going to strain it one more time. I'm not trying to get a ribbon at the fair or win any awards, so it doesn't have to be super clear, but I am giving it for Christmas presents, some of it. So I'm going to try to, if there are any solids in the bottom of this bowl again, I'm going to avoid even pouring them in because they're going to be the super fine solids that will sit at the bottom of a jar and make it a little bit cloudy. There's not too many left, but there's a few, so I'll pour just to the point of when those start going in, and I'll have to waste a little bit of juice to avoid pouring those fine solids in. Not much though. And we are left with this beautiful juice. I've got my bowl that I'm going to measure my 6.5 cups of sugar in for each batch. I have my Pyrex dish that I need to measure 3 cups of chokecherry juice into for each batch. I'm going to need 2 pouches of liquid pectin per batch. And I've got my scissors to open those. You need to have all this stuff ready because it happens very fast. I've got a ladle to stir the mixture and to spoon into the hot jars, and then I put this in the jar, ladle it in, and I have less spillage that way. I'm going to get my lids simmering so that the rubber seal around the top seal. You also need to have some butter available. You're going to use half a teaspoon per batch, and that keeps the foam down. That's 3 cups of juice. That's going to go into the stock pot. 6.5 cups of sugar into the juice, and we need a half a teaspoon of butter. That will prevent foaming. Liquid pectin at the ready. I'm going to start this. Stir this until the sugar is completely dissolved and the mixture comes to a full rolling boil, which means that it continues boiling even when you stir it. I'm going to get these cut open, put them in this cup, and then those will be ready to go instead of trying to fumble with the scissors, and they're hard enough to get everything squeezed out at the last second, so we'll get those ready to go. I'm also going to put a hot pad down on my counter because I'm going to be putting that big tray of hot jars out of the oven onto the countertop. I'm almost to a full rolling boil where it continues to boil even though I'm stirring. And I'm going to say I'm there, so I need to quickly add both pouches of pectin, fold it in half, and then you don't have to reach so far across to get the thing squeezed out. So the pectin is in, I've stirred it in, now I need to get this back full rolling boil again. I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes. Just stir it constantly. That's my 3-minute timer. Let's check it. They're kind of half filling the time, so I'm going to give it another minute. The longer you boil it, the harder and more set the jelly is. I don't want it to be super liquidy, but I don't want it to be really stiff either, so I'm kind of trying to get in between there. Turning the stove off, double checking the tines. Okay, they're filling all the way down. Now I need to get this off of this hot burner, and I'm starting with the small jars because I want to be sure that I have some Christmas gifts. And I'm scooching it over so I have less spillage. Oh, I need to skim off this foam. The butter doesn't prevent all of it. It does help though. It doesn't hurt to have this. If you have foam on top of your jelly, it's just not as pretty. Make sure you study up on canning. Don't just take my word for it. This is just how I do it. You may want to take extra precautions. That's up to you. We are ready to fill jars to within a 1/4 inch of the top. I basically got my 12 4-ounce jars and 1 8-ounce jar, plus this partial for the next batch. So I need a damp paper towel, and if I see any jelly on the top of the rim, I need to wipe it off. Okay, rims are clean. Now I need to get the lids on, and I've got rings ready. Hot lid. And a ring. Finger tight. Turn it over. And those are hot. We're going to turn these over for 5 minutes. I'll set that timer once I get them all the lids on. Alright, all the lids and rings are on. I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes, and then we will turn them back over. In the meantime, I'm going to get my next batch heating up. Timer's about to go off here for turning the jars over, so I'm going to quickly get those over to the cooling rack. Oh, I heard my first lid pop, meaning that the vacuum seal has been created inside that jar. Any of them that don't seal, you want to use right away. So each batch of 3 cups of juice and 6.5 cups of sugar is giving me 7 cups of jelly. Batch number 2 has come to a rolling boil after I've added the pectin. We're going to boil it for 3 minutes. Check with the fork to see if the tines are filled, and if so, that's when we take it off the heat and get it into the jars. The last, it's going to be a partial jar. That's fine. We'll go through that one first. Okay, again, I am not cleaning the pan. I'm going to add the last half a batch of juice in. This is going to be syrup, so I may not even add any pectin to it. Half the amount of sugar that a full batch requires, and less butter to prevent the foaming. All right, 5 minutes for those to be turned over. After that, we'll put them on the cooling racks. So last batch, and that's it. The last 2 jars. And I need to go find my son and let him know that it's all done. But this is the foam that we skimmed off. So we're gonna snack on this. We call it the fuzz, but it's so good. Oh man, chokecherry jelly is the best. Yum.
Tastes pretty good, actually.
And there we go. Chokecherry jelly and 1 big jar of syrup, all made. 9 pounds of chokecherries and 13 4-ounce jars, plus 3, 6, 9 of the 8-ounce jars and the 1 almost full quart of syrup. I destroyed my kitchen to make chokecherry jelly, but it was worth it. This is basically my kitchen. That's why you see me filming so close like I am. I don't have the fancy big kitchen like some people do. It's time to clean up my disaster of a kitchen after making chokecherry jelly. So let's do a time lapse and you can see me hustle and get this cleaned up. That's it. All clean.